do you think you're too liberal-minded, particularly in the eyes of Beijing, or are you still amongst the trusted?
I don't think anyone can be too liberal-minded, especially someone graduating from this school, from St. Paul's.
Jasper, you graduated from St. Paul's College Primary School, one of the oldest Anglo-Chinese school in Hong Kong. This was a school that started as a missionary school right next to the government house and on the site now occupied by the Bishop House. What was it like growing up in such a school?
When I came to St. Paul's, we were already here. The primary section of St. Paul's was actually in this building.
Already,
exactly
yes.
In this building. Right? And of course, the first problem I had was the medium of teaching, because every subject, apart from except Chinese and Chinese history, all the subjects were taught in English. And of course, I came from a Chinese medium primary school. So I remember during the first week in school, I couldn't hear one word in the classroom. The only thing I got in the first week was a timetable, because that was on the blackboard. We simply had to copy from the blackboard. So couldn't hear one word. That was the first impression.
Well, when the Cultural Revolution happened in 1967, you were a university student already, and your younger brother was an activist, and he threw a flag down with the Hong Kong British from the high block, and he was arrested by the police. And I actually saw it happen, but I was too young.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Ah.
I was in primary school. I saw it happening. I didn't know what was going on. Did you recall what happened?
No, I didn't know until after he was arrested, and my family was informed. Well, my brother, I wouldn't say that he was an activist. I mean, he was a little bit timid, very well disciplined. I don't think he would ever break any school rule when he was a student. So he was not the sort of fighting kind of young man. But yes, he was angry with the British government in Hong Kong, and so he expressed his anger in the way he did. And I remember I got a call from my relatives, I think, telling me that my brother had been arrested in school. And I went home. I was in the university already. I was staying in the hostel university. I got the call, and I went home, and I found my younger sister crying. So, and I still remember that scene.
Right. Well, how was your life affected by that incident? You're now labeled as coming from a so-called patriotic family, and therefore many of your contemporaries who went on to be AOs into business, that path was actually blocked from patriotic families. And you became a teacher and later principal of Pui Kui Middle School. And you later became a politician as well. How did the transformation from a schoolboy to school teacher to a school principal to now a senior politician happened?
Well, that's a long and rather complicated story, but to make it short, when I got my degree, when I graduated from the university, not only was I labeled leftist or pro-communist because of what happened to my brother and later to my sister as well. But also, I graduated in the year 1968. Now, it was a very, very peculiar year, 1968. Student movements were everywhere in the world. I remember in 1968, in the summer of 1968, the university in Paris saw the most, the largest scale, most massive student demonstration in history back in 1968. In the United States, students were, university students everywhere were fighting against the Vietnam War. Right? They were protesting against the American government taking part in the Vietnam War. And similarly in England, in Japan, in many cities in Europe, there were university students were protesting almost everywhere. And so, because I studied mathematics in the Hong Kong U, the usual thing for mathematics graduates at the Hong Kong U to do was to go abroad, mostly to the United States, for further studies, to get a PhD in one of the American universities. And I also applied to several well-known American universities, and I got, I think, offers from 3 or 4 of them.
With scholarship, I'm sure.
Yes. but yeah, I thought to myself, if I went to the United States, it would be student protests, student sit-ins almost every day. There wouldn't be any study, any learning at all. So I said, well, maybe I should stay in Hong Kong for a couple of years and wait till the dust settle down everywhere, till I can see more clearly. And of course, wait till my brother came out, right, from the prison, and I could see more clearly what the world was like, and then I could decide my next step. So I got a teaching position in Pui Kui Middle School. The things went, I stayed there for several decades.
Well, you were an executive council member, and you were a CPPCC member, and your highest and best known position is the LegCo president. You were well respected in LegCo, and you yelled at both long hair and your fellow legislators at DAB, and probably because you're very liberal-minded. Do you think you're too liberal-minded, particularly in the eyes of Beijing, or are you still amongst the trusted?
I don't think anyone can be too liberal-minded, especially someone graduating from this school, from St. Paul's. I don't think there's anything wrong in having a liberal mind. I've heard a lot of criticism about the way I conduct LegCo business while I was president. I've heard a lot of deprecating remarks about my political stance. Some people believe that I'm not patriotic enough. Others would say that I'm a false. I'm not a true Democrat, right? Well,
I'm not a true Democrat either. In some.
So, I mean, yes, this is Hong Kong. I mean, there are so many different schools, different camps, and you know, I would say I'm grateful that all the way I have found people who would agree with me, right? I would find sympathizers. Now that's enough for me.
Are you still trusted by Beijing?
I
Okay.